Okay, continue on with these shapes. We did talk about this last time, this kind of indent that you see kind of goes in through here, and we just boolean straight through there. So what I'm going to do is give myself a little more geometry right in here. So what we can do is go to object mode, shift right click, use a multi-cut tool. And if you remember what I was saying, you can hold on control and you can split through the model. We should be able to drag a piece out and through here, and I'm just looking at this. I'm just kind of eyeballing it, and it's roughly right around in this area, like this, right here. And what I can do, now that that gave me new pieces of geometry, I can take this edge, F10, select it there, or you can just, you know, right click over here and get edges that way. So just get used to these different selection modes. So I got these two edges, and I can just put on the scale tool, and I can scale that down. Now I should check this against my reference and see where we're at with that. Like this comes down quite a bit through here, and that comes down quite a bit through there. So I think we're pretty good for that. Now this edge needs to come up here and match that, so I'll put on the move tool, hold down V, and I'll snap right to that vert right there like that. And I need to take this edge and move it down, holding down V, and snap to that right there like that. I'm going to continue to use that the mirror tool. So if you're in polygons, there are some, like here's the access to the mirror option like that. So you can get used to, like, you can either use the shelf, or you can use hotkeys, or you got this stuff up here, right? And so I'm just going to mirror across like that. And the other thing I want to do is get my hard edges set. So if I turn off wireframe unshaded, you can see it starts to build up something like this. If we go to here, shift right click, we can say soften harden edge. So if you soften everything, it's going to look like this. If you harden everything, you know, you can go here like that. It's going to be like this, or you can do a combination of the two where you do soften harden edge, option box, and then maybe choose an angle of degree, like maybe 20 or so. That way it softens everything except for like whenever it hits that threshold for that angle, and then it'll make a hard edge for that. So you know, you might start to find yourself using those tools quite a bit, but I want to have some kind of understanding of the shape, so that's kind of why we're doing some of those things there like that. So that's that part right there, right? Now what we could do, we want to get this little notch that's happening at the bottom of this thing right here. So what I'm going to do is go to my side view, and we're going to use the multi-cut tool again, shift right click over the object mode, multi-cut tool, and what we can do is drag out from this edge across here, and we could just slice across here like this. Let me hold down shift, and you can snap along here. I'm just trying to see if there's like some kind of angle or whatever that's going to make sense. So this is like 72 or so, right around there, and hit enter, and I'll do the same thing for this right here. Okay, somewhere in there like that, and then I can just go across here, and this time I'll hold down shift, and if you hold down shift and control, sometimes you can get a 90-degree angle on there. I'm just gonna put this in through here like that. Now if that isn't perfect, I can always go select that vert, move it, and then remember, if you hold down V and you snap down to that vert, now it's going to be snapped down to that that location there. Now I don't need this piece of geometry just necessarily just yet, so I'm going to select those edges. It'll leave verts there, so I can get rid of those and not have those in. And let's go to the 3D view of this. So now we've got something like this. I need a split going all the way down here, so I'll go back to the multi-cut tool. Sorry, I'm just gonna zoom in on here. Shift right click, multi-cut tool, go across here, hold down control and shift, and there you're gonna see it gives you that 90-degree angle, which is nice. And so cutting across there, and what this is kind of like a notch that's like extruded in. So if I select this face, F11, and shift right click on there and say extrude face, I'm going to take it off of this mode here and put it into world mode for moving back. And what I'm seeing is it kind of comes in about yay far, about in through here. Now I will have to take this face and delete it and get rid of it. Gonna get rid of this face as well. And so I got that inner part. Yeah, I need to get rid of that face right there like that. And now I can let's just do that mirror across. So we got something like this. Now we're missing the bottom of this, but we can use the append polygon tool. So shift right click in here and say append to polygon, and you can click here. It doesn't have a direction to it, so here's the direction that it's looking at. I'll go across here like that. Tap Y for my last tool, like this. And let's just check this thing out and make sure you did it correctly. So one way that I check to make sure my geometries sound and put together, you can tap 3 to do smooth mesh preview, and you know, it's going to do something crazy like this, but sometimes I can actually check and see if there's any kind of any weird holes or things like that in there. So I don't know if that's really going to give me results that are really all that great. I can select my verts, check that out, move that, and there we go. We need some verts on here, so like we could either there's a couple different ways we can go about it, right? We can go to F11 and select that, get rid of that, those faces. We could do the append to polygon tool again, or you could add a vert and snap, kind of like what we did earlier. So it's just, it really depends on what you want to do with that geometry, because there's different ways of solving kind of the same problem. I'll just do this one real quick. Now let's tap 3 and see. Still not really giving me results that really help me all that much. Now, one thing we could do to kind of tighten this up, if you want to continue geometry on, things like that, we could do some multi-cut, and we can go from this vert here, hold down Control and Shift and go up like that, and we can go do this through here. I'm holding down Control and Shift to do this this 90-degree tool that it has in there. Again, I think it comes in pretty handy. And you can do the same from here, like that. Hit enter. Now if we tap 3, maybe we're going to see a little more information like that, and tap 1 to go back. And maybe I slice across from here, holding on Control and Shift, and I'll go from here actually to here like that. And if I tap 3 now, yeah, I'm starting to be able to see that shape a little bit more and see if there's any like big problems with it. Now there are some other tools for checking some of this stuff out. One thing that would help is, I'm going to mirror that, delete history. We can go to display, and we can go to polygons and go to the bottom and go to custom polygon display, and you can turn on border edges, and you can make the edge width pretty high on there, and you can tell it to do this custom display through the selected or all. Do border edges like that and hit apply. Now if there's any verts that needed to be welded up, and it looks like I'm good on everything, but if we delete that, you see how it highlights anything that's open. So anytime you have some verts that aren't welded together, that's going to be like a display thing that could really help you identify some different problems within the model. Okay, so to continue this part out, if I look at the model and go back to your reference and check it out, if we take a look from this section going across back and through here, there's actually a slight grade or a bevel that's kind of cut out of this thing right in through here. So what I'm seeing is it comes from about right in through here. Imagine a line going straight across here, and then this all starts to taper down a little bit. So we can use the multi-cut tool, and we could go to the side, and I'm gonna do this a bit so I can see kind of what's going on a little bit more. And shift right click, go to multi-cut tool. I can slice from here, and sometimes if you do this, let me hit backspace, because you can actually drag a line all the way through and just slice through the model, and that comes in pretty handy sometimes. So maybe I just want to slice all the way through this thing like this. Now I do have to be careful that you know, I wasn't super accurate with this thing. So let's get real close here and see. It actually sliced from that point, and I'm just going to move this up and check it. Yep, so see, it looks like it's really clean, but there's some verts going on there that need to be merged together. So because they're right on top of each other, select these both like that, shift right click and say merge vertices to center, and that'll merge those verts together. And I should have everything else set up okay. Now I'm just going to take those verts and snap them. I'm going to hold down V and then snap to that level and make sure it's nice and even going straight across. And why I wanted to give myself a split like that, and delete history, Alt Shift D, I'll mirror it across again, delete history. I'm going to take the lattice tool, and I'm going to taper this geometry in. So I'm going to select all the verts up to here. Let's go to the side, and we'll select this all. And sometimes you can use the animation deformation tools and stuff like that. You use it in your modeling process, right? So instead of modeling, we're going to be inside of rigging, and we can go to deform, and then we can go to lattice deformer. Open up the option box for this. So this basically gives you a box that you can take the box and take the points on the box and deform that. So we're going to do something really simple. The divisions are X, Y, and Z, 2, 2, and 2, and hit apply like that. And then now this gives you this see-through box. If you wanted more divisions on there, you can middle mouse drag that. So this is going to give you something like, let's do at least this, and not that, I'll do that right there like that, right? If I right click over this and say lattice points, I can select the points on here, and I can move them around and start to deform the model, right? So this is kind of a cool way of again using this for modeling to kind of deform things. But because I want to do a taper, I can just take these points and these points, hold on shift and add to that selection, and I can scale them, and I can scale them in. And so what I'm seeing is this thing kind of comes in about at this angle in through here, somewhere about like that, right? So I mean, if I wanted to be super accurate, we could be loading up a reference and checking that out, but I'll leave that up to you to take a look at. Once you're done with this, select the object, Alt Shift D, and that'll delete history. If you want to see Windows, if we go to the outliner, and you can take a look, this is what it's doing here for this lattice. So Alt Shift D, and it'll delete that lattice, and those changes are baked in, right? So we can also do the soften harden edge thing like what we talked about before, but maybe we want this edge and this edge to be, let's do, oops, soften harden edge, and we'll do harden edge on that one, kind of like that. So looking at the model a little bit more, there is actually a piece of geometry that kind of I need to split across here and kind of pull that geometry in just a little bit. So I'm going to go back to the side, and we're going to use the same tool that we did before. We're going to use the multi-cut tool, shift right click, multi-cut tool, and then just drag a straight line. So I'm going to hold down shift as I go across that right there. And I think that's about the right size for that to be pulled in. So I'll go over here to the side, and now I can just select all these, it's basically all these faces within inside of here. So I can select this, kind of like this, and through here, and it's got that angle to it, and I can pull this in just a little bit like that. And I think I'm trying to look at the actual model here, and it kind of pulls in about to there, you know, somewhere in that this kind of ballpark within through here. I'm gonna reduce the size of this just a little. Let's pull this down, and you can dock the outliner if you want, but I'm not gonna dock that. I'm gonna leave it right here like this, and I think that looks pretty good. Now we do have what I think is this angle right here for this kind of coming up and through here. This angle needs to continue all the way up and through here. So I'm going to select this edge, I'm going to move it up until it feels like it's about the right kind of angle and through there, like that, right there, like that. And then now I can just take this piece, this edge, hold down V, snap to this right here, and might as well make sure my vert here is going straight across. Hold down V and push up and snap right in through there. And so I think we're getting there now with this shape. And I'll go ahead and mirror it again. So just get used to using these tools, you know. And we're trying to get to the point where we've got this object to where it's ready for us to start doing some beveling on this, right? Because the goal of this is for us to be able to take this model, tap 3 for the smooth mesh preview part of it, and it still kind of holds. And so, you know, there's going to be quite a bit going on to get to that point. We're just not quite there yet, but we are getting pretty close with this. Just going to move these verts. Now, what I told you about symmetry before is if you, let's see here, let's undo that real quick. If you take the model and you Control Shift right click, you can do symmetry. And a lot of these operations and things that I was doing, you can actually do this with symmetry on. Now it does help if this thing is perfectly symmetrical and it's mirrored across, right? Then it should be able to find these points and faces, and you should be able to model just basically one side of the object, and everything else should follow with it. So I'm going to take like these points and hold down V and snap them through here, and I think everything's pretty good for this stuff, but just trying to make sure everything's kind of buttoned up on this like that for a shape. And yeah, so I mean, we've already looked at the Boolean tools. If you take a look at the reference on this, it does have these holes for the screw holes. I'm not super big on that, but we can put the holes in there. I do want to, if you look on the other side, they've got these fake kind of screws in there, and I think those would be kind of nice to have within there. So you might want to punch the holes out, you know. I do think that would be pretty easy for us, though. We would just have to go create polygon primitives and do a cylinder, and we've already got this set up. We've got 8 for that. Create. We can put on the rotate tool, which is E, hold down J to snap rotation, rotate it 90 degrees like that, and we want to control the scale of it to go through the model and then start scaling down this way. Now you can hold down, this is kind of neat, if you hold down control while you scale on one of these, it'll scale in 2 axes. So if we wanted to make it bigger, like width through there and height, but not the depth through that, you could do it that this way, holding down control and then dragging on there. So I'm going to move this basically to where the reference shows, you know, somewhat in the center of this thing, roughly about that size, and then I'll duplicate that and move it. And I can snap this right to there on that point there. and I could move this up, and this is a smaller, a little bit smaller hole, so it's not quite this big. Let's move it here and scale it down. So there's just some distortion on there from the angle of the photograph. It's not a true orthographic view. So I could cheat that a little bit. Make sure the holes are about the same size. Now this is snapped to the center of this, I know that, and these are supposed to be the same size. So I can Control D, duplicate it, and then snap it to that point there, and then just move it up roughly into here, like that. Now we do have some other holes here. We can duplicate and move it right there. Duplicate and move it right through there. Now let's take a look at these cylinders, right? We can scale them out like that. And then we'll do a modeling operation. We'll combine them together, delete the history, and remember we did the difference between these guys. I'm going to save real quick, just just in case. Get this object, hold on Shift, select these, and then we're going to go to Mesh Booleans and do a difference between those two. And so now we've got some holes in through here. It does a pretty good job. Sometimes it's going to make some not so great geometry, so you might have to go through and clean some of this up, right? So I just selected those edges, delete them. That's going to clean up that part. Not that big of a deal for that. This part and through here, I probably don't want these edges, and then these verts, F9, so F10 edges, F9 verts. So we got that, and let's take a look. Let's take a look at what we got going on up here, because sometimes it does some, some funky things where geometry is like really close to where it splits, and so you got to be a little bit careful about that and clean some of this stuff up like that, and like that. There we go. So it's going to be really hard to tell, like, depending on your placement, if you've got the same exact kind of results as I do, but it should go and be something fairly similar to this. Okay. All right. So the next part, it's kind of interesting that the beveling, like, I'm going to try to keep this in Maya, but we can push this over to Zbrush, and you could do turn this into Dynamesh and then do a really small polish on this, and it kind of rounds the corners and stuff like that. But we need to look at both, doing it in Maya and then also Zbrush as well. Now the thing about Zbrush is this is kind of low res, and we'd want nice curvature on this kind of stuff. There's some ways of dealing with it, but let's just continue taking a look at box modeling inside of Maya for some of this stuff. Okay, so what I think I might do is kind of push this thing into a, the next video would be in a time-lapse mode, so I can go a lot quicker and just use the multi-cut tool, kind of finish off some of the geometry on here, and you would have to identify some patterns for like how the geometry is being flown out from these different edges and things like that, like just to give you a little preview of what that might entail is like something like this, and then you're gonna extend this out to here, so it's not anything crazy. It's just a little bit time consuming, and you gotta think about how the geometry is gonna flow out from some of these different areas, and again, trying to stay in quads as much as you possibly can. Now, when you are going through this process, you might see going from smooth to a non-smooth version, right? And it's gonna start doing stuff like this, where you try to hold an edge the best that you can. And yeah, so it's going to be quite a bit of that kind of process.